Hi friends, welcome to Biju Guys Teaching Cafe. This is a short lecture on a theme that is quite different from the usual lectures I have been offering you for the last couple of days. This is a different lecture. The purpose of this lecture is to make you familiar with the techniques in political science in which a student of political science can apply the concepts and theories he or she learns from the classrooms goes to the society. That the theories and concepts you study in political science classes is being connected with the everyday lives, to our surroundings, to the world we live in. That is, the purpose of this lecture is connect the concepts with the everyday life. You clear? I hope you understood. So, a student of political science, no matter what, whether you study political science as a major or you study political science as a complementary course in history, economics or any other social science branches, you should have some kind of preliminary grounding on how to organize knowledge in political science, how to conduct research in political science, how to apply the concepts you study in political science with the everyday life in the society. Clear? So, this lecture is about what is research, how political science construct knowledge, and constructing knowledge or what is research is a primary understanding in the basics of political science. So you should be familiar with research in political science. So understanding how political science construct knowledge and how it is being applied in society is an area of understanding that is preliminary part of the basics of this subject. Clear? So friends, the title of this lecture is like this: Research in political science. What is it and how is it conducted? Once more, research in political science. What is it and how is it conducted? That's it, friends. Two themes are being discussed. Two themes. One is what is research, and second is how a student of political science can carry out a good research. So, friends, come to the discussion. That is, what is research? Let us know what is research. So, people will tell you that research is search for information. People will tell you it is search for information. Research is search for information. Of course, I know you are brilliant students, you are very curious and smart people, so you might naturally have doubts. You might ask a simple question: is it fair to call research as collection of or gathering of information? Because all the people in our society gather information, search for information. Yes, you are right. All the people in our society search for information. Your comment is right. Because the Rishabh, you know, he read a lot of newspapers because he wanted to have new information about politics and the things he likes to know. So, your local hairstylist has lot of information because he meets so many people every day in his shop, where he used to discuss with a lot of things from Mars mission to Corona pandemic. So he is a knowledgeable person. He has lot of information, far better than you. So he is also searching for information. Your local politician has a lot of information because he is an avid newspaper reader and frequently listens news or debates in broadcast media every day. So he is well updated on almost everything under the sky. So friends, then can we say research as gathering of information? Of course, your question is right. Then some other people will tell you that research is research, R-E-R-E-S-E-A-R-C-H, research. That is, you are searching and searching again till you are convinced that what is in your mind is correct. That's it. It means you again and again researching for things and facts, verified whether the things you have in your mind is correct. For that you are searching and searching again and again. So then people might tell you, sorry, people might ask, or you may ask, because you are brilliant people, you may ask, the chef in your local restaurant experiment every day on the food he prepares. People likes his food items because every day he changes the flavor of the delicacies he prepares. His masala dosa is famous in the local street because he experiments every day. He searches for new flavor every day, and he is able to put new flavors to masala dosa he prepares. He searches again and again for new flavors for his new recipes. Can we call him a scientist? Of course you can call him, or you need not to call him a scientist or a researcher. Okay, but you might have some doubts. Is the definition okay that research is research, searching again and again for information in your mind to know whether it is correct? So is that really correct a definition? Is this what you may call research? Then some other people will tell you that it is gathering of information, or some other people will tell you that it is systematic search for knowledge. Some people will tell you that it is gathering of information, others will tell you that it is systematic search for knowledge. Well, some people, yet other people will tell you that research is an activity educated people engage, that they want to find new things. They want to find new things. This is an activity being carried over by educated people in our academia. So that you go to a university, part of the degree program, you engage in an activity that find new things, and you publish your findings, and you get recognition, and you get a title also. You are called a scientist. Then you might have some doubts in your head. What is that? You are brilliant people, you know. So you have a doubt. You are not convinced with that definition, that it's a systematic search for knowledge in an academy settings. Because that people, that Elon Musk of SpaceX, he is doing some interesting works. He is doing some smart works. He has plans to go to Mars. He has an idea like sending tourists to Mars, a colony in Mars. That Facebook man Zuckerberg, he got some beautiful and brilliant ideas. These people are not doing these kinds of activities in a research lab or in an academia. You are correct. These smart people are also doing research, but we never call them scientists, right? Okay, so there are so many definitions, friends. There are so many definitions. So many people have defined research in so many different ways. So what is research is actually a contested question, because there are so many definitions available, so many ideas are being available about what is research. So friends, research is different thing to different people. People attach different meanings to this research depending upon the context in which this word is applied. Right. The meaning differs from context to context. So all the people we know engage in some kind of research activities in some ways and in some platforms. Your mother in the kitchen, your driver in the local bus, your newspaper boy, your vegetable vendor in the local store. They are all researchers. They do some kinds of research activities in their everyday life. All the people engage in research. The only thing is that we never call them scientists, even if they are engaging in research. We never call them scientists. We never call them a scientist mother, right? A scientist chef, or a scientist newspaper boy, or a scientist vegetable vendor. No, we never call. But they do engage in some kinds of research activities. So We never call them scientists nor give them any recognition or title. So friends, you might ask, then what is research? It's an interesting question. To call any activity research, you should have some unique factors to under consideration. What are them? The unique factors you need to consider when you define something as research. Friends, research is understanding. Research is understanding how and why we do what we do. It is just understanding how and why we do what we do. Simple. That's it. We ask a lot of questions regarding why things seem that way, why things seem what it is, or why we believe what things are really what it is. Why things are really what it is. So that is, research is understanding how and why we do what we do. Clear? So research is something that produces universally valid theories. Research is something that produces universally valid theories. Research is based on the work of others. Research is based on the work of other people. And your research is, of course, an advancement of the work of other people. That some other people have said something about something, and you wanted to upgrade their idea. Or another factor you have to consider is that research can be replicated. That is, frequent testing gives you the same result. Then it is research. That it is generalizable. Anything you need to call research, it should be generalizable. It cannot be done in intellectual isolation, because so many people have done so many researches on the things you are going to research, and there are so many theories, and you need not to just reproduce what they have done. Your work is different and unique in the sense that you have upgraded, you have made some new contributions to the already existing research. That's why it cannot be done in intellectual isolation. So so many people are working, have done some works in your area of study, and your work is not different from them. What you have done is that you are just contributing something to the existing stockpile of knowledge. And finally, the most important thing, if you want to call something research, it should be apolitical. Your research should not have any political purpose. You need not to propose a theory or an information or a knowledge that should side with, or that should substantiate, or that should politically propagate some ideas, or that should side with some political ideologies. Then it cannot be said to be research. Okay, so understanding social world through social research presupposes, understanding our social world through social research presupposes that there should be a methodology. That is important point. Friends, when you call something or when you call an activity as research, it should have methodology. It should have a methodology. Your methodology should give you an answer. So you encounter poverty, you encounter violence, you encounter unemployment, gender oppression, discrimination, social injustice. So many things are being encountered in our society. But it should be done through a methodology, a scientific methodology. That makes your knowledge different from the chef, your mother in the kitchen, your local vegetable vendor, or the newspaper boy. They all have some ideas about all these things, gender violence or discrimination, injustice. But your knowledge is, your information is different because you have a methodology to propose theory. So, not only that, religion has its own worldview about poverty, violence, discrimination. Literature, when you read some good literature, this literature people have said so many things about gender violence, discrimination, injustice in society. They have their own worldview, their own way of producing knowledge. But what makes social science or political science different from their knowledge system is that you got a methodology. So what makes social science special is the presence of methodology to understand problems. Methodology to understand problems. So let us know then how research is being done. So far I told you what is research. Then how research is being done. Friends, so far we have come across different things related to what is research, and now I must tell you what exactly or how is it is being done. How it is being done. It's very simple. It is very simple. How you should do a research is very simple. Well, I should quote from Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling. I should quote from Rudyard Kipling. I think you may be aware of Rudyard Kipling. Once Rudyard Kipling has famously said, I keep 6 honest serving men. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I know. They taught me all I know. Their names are what, why, when, how, where, and who. Once more. Their names are what, why, when, how, where, and who. 6 honest serving men. A good social researcher, a good political scientist should always ask these 6 honest serving men. You should keep these 6 honest serving men with you if you are going to research field. A good political scientist need to ask 6 questions. Look around. Ask these questions wherever you go. Some people go to Facebook and WhatsApp and frequently update so many things they have done. And question comes to your mind. Is this person a trustable person because he or she brags so many things about what they have done on Facebook that day? Is that person who, or you may ask, is someone who engages frequently on Facebook and WhatsApp a good sociable person and trustable because every day they engages with so many unknown people on Facebook? Whether such a people can be trusted? It's an interesting question. You need to ask what, why, when, how, where, who. Are they real people? So people get lot of information on internet. Does that information on internet reduce quality of information people possess? Because internet caused poor consumption of books. Books once provided good information because books are produced through a editing process, through a editorial review process, peer review process, and once the information is correct, book will be published. But on internet, anybody can be a publisher. Anybody can publish. So people read so many information on internet and they avoid books. So you may ask whether the information people possess reduce quality of the information people possess. So you have to ask uncomfortable questions like this: what, why, when, how, where, who. This is the way you can conduct research in social science or in political science. So let me wind up this lecture by telling you a small anecdote about what exactly is research. So friends, you might remember Charles Darwin, an English naturalist, geologist and biologist, who believed that facial expressions, our expressions, we laugh, we smile, we keep different kinds of facial expressions when we have emotions in our heart. So he said once that emotions we have that we express through our facial expressions are identical in all the people and in all the societies. No matter whether you are in Africa or Asia or Europe or Americas, when people feel to cry, when people feel happy, when people feel love, when people feel delighted, they enjoyed, or they have emotions, everywhere people express their emotions in similar way through their face. That was his idea, that he said people's emotions are biologically determined and identical across all cultures. So that's it. He believed when you lie, have pain, feel angry, have love, no matter what. He believed the facial expressions of the people and the facial expressions of this emotion were same across all cultures, same across all the people. So he proposed this research in his 1872 book, The Expression of the Emotion in Man and Animals. The expression of the emotion in man and animal. He published this idea. It was a groundbreaking research. Nobody has proposed a theory like this before. By using psychological causes of emotional expressions through photographs, Darwin told the world that human expressions were same in every place, in every man. So he even used photographs in 1872 to conduct this study. That was innovative those days. So before this, nobody had used research using photographs. So Darwin used his family as a case. He always used his family as references for his studies, for his research, and he made a close observation of his first child William for proposing this observation. So this was not the first time Darwin proposed these kinds of interesting observations to the middle class or the educated people in Europe. But friends, this idea was later taken by Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman, he created a huge impact, on the studies on facial expressions and emotions, which Darwin has started. And he read an article by Sylvan Tompkins about universality of facial expressions. That everywhere people express their emotion through same gestures, through same facial expressions. So he began to feel that is, Paul Ekman began to feel that this area should be studied properly. So he traveled, Paul Ekman traveled to Chile, Argentina, Japan and Brazil. He traveled to Chile, Argentina, Japan and Brazil and met so many people in each country and showed photographs, the same photographs everywhere, and he studied how people express their face when they have emotions. And he found that in every country, in each country he visited, and the people whom he met had identical expressions for emotions, identical facial expressions for emotions. And he was but unsatisfied about his findings. And he was not satisfied, and he began to ask these questions: that where, when, how, why, where. See, but he found that he visited 4 countries, and these 4 countries are more connected. They are connected by books, literature, movies, food items and media. So therefore emotion and facial expressions are more homogenized through these cultures. Chile, Argentina, Japan and Brazil are more connected countries. So when you watch a movie produced in Hollywood, while actors exhibit certain emotions through their face, and it gets wider recognition and wider acceptance among people in various cultures, and people everywhere imitate the same facial expressions because that movie has influenced their facial expressions. So he wanted to study this subject in a place which is unconnected to the rest of the world. So he preferred Papua New Guinea, and he went there, where he again showed the photographs to people there, where people are not connected to the Western ideas or pop cultures in the Western world, and he showed the same photographs where people again showed the same facial expressions which he had found in those Western countries. So Ekman found some interesting observation. He pointed out that culture plays itself a big role in the way in which we express emotions through our face. Our feelings are innate, that is inside us. Our feelings, emotions are inside it, but our facial expressions are also instinctive, that we express certain emotions instinctively. Nobody teaches that you should express this way, your emotion through face in that way or this way. But how you express can be influenced by the culture in which you are born and brought up. That is, how you express your facial expression is influenced by culture in which you are born and brought up. That's it. He found If you are grown up in a culture where masking emotion is strong, you will work hard to hide emotions. That if you are born in a culture where the culture prevents you from exhibiting your emotion through your face, then you will hide your emotion because your culture doesn't permit you express emotions through face, right? So it's an interesting observation, friends. Consider the depth of the research, the depth of the study. It's a simple thing that whether people who express their emotions through face are identical, whether people have same facial expressions through same emotions through different cultures. That was a simple idea, but you just consider the way in which it is being carried out by different people, started by Darwin. It has been later carried over by Paul Ekman, and he had a worldwide tour for studying this. You see the energy and intellectual labor put for this research. Friends, research is depth understanding of social phenomenon. It is depth understanding of social phenomenon. When you do a research, what makes your theory or knowledge different is that it had a depth. That is why it is different from the information that your rickshaw puller has, or your chef has, your mother has, your newspaper boy has. Because your information has depth that is different from the information the other people who possess it. So you are an intellectual craftsman. The rickshaw puller, the chef, the mother and the newspaper boy are not intellectual craftsmen. So friends, if you are a student of political science, you should be an intellectual craftsman. Ready? Friends, thank you for listening to the lecture. If you have questions and comments and opinion about the lecture, please drop a line to me in my YouTube channel in the comment box. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Stay safe.